You're going to police all of that? How are you going to monitor all of that without the proper support and infrastructure is, up for grabs. But before that, more of intellectual property and copyright after this short break.
We now return to Piracy Watch on DZRJ 810 AM, the voice of the Philippines. Here's your host, Sarah Jane Sugitan.
Welcome back, everybody, on Piracy Watch. You're still on the Voice of the Philippines, DZRJ 810 AM. For those who want to join in our conversation, the phone here in the studio is 897-8374. Again, that's 897-8374. Now, for those of you who'd like to seek assistance in registering your intellectual property, especially your trademarks and your patents, do call up the IPOFIL at 751-0395. Again, that's 751-0395. The hotline for those who'd like to report fake pirated activities is 752-4870. Again, that's 752-4870, the hotline for anything that's piracy related. Just before the break, just before the other break, Harry was asking me here who owns the copyright in commissioned works. For example, a song, or in an advertising agency, you have an ad and it's made by a lot of people: the copywriter, the producer, the ad agency, the graphic designer, and there's the client. So among these two parties, between these two parties, who owns the copyright over that ad? And as we said, copyright involves layers and layers of works, rights, bundle of rights spread among different parties. For example, in an advertisement, if you outsource the creation of an advertisement for your company and you intend to use it to promote your new product, the copyright belongs to the advertising agency unless it was expressly agreed upon in a contract. So the copyright stays with the creator of the work. You can use it provided that's the agreement, or you can entirely own the copyright to it if also the advertising agency waives its right over that particular work. Now, if, for example, sometime later you want to use parts of that advertisement, like a photo or a logo or the graphic design from that particular ad that you commissioned an advertising agency to do, you must seek the permission from the ad agency to use the copyright material in this new way, because the new way is not covered by the former contract. Nevertheless, there are exceptional cases such as photographs that were taken for private purposes, cinematographic films. Yeah, and so there are layers and layers of rights bundled up in a work, and who owns which depends on who created which, and also the use depends on how the individual copyright owners come together and agree on how the song or the play or the ad will be used. Now, for those of you who are wondering what the hell is the copyright's special role in national development, as we were saying earlier, copyright, as differentiated from other forms of intellectual property, pertains to creative and literary works like stories that you've written, PowerPoint presentations, songs that you've performed. And I'd like to quote, and this is in one of the burning sessions that we held last year in Camp Crame, from the U.S. Embassy's Jennifer Neidhart. She said this during the ceremonial destruction. Yeah, that's something that we see every year. That the IPO, the Intellectual Property Office of the Philippines, is responsible for defending the space where ideas, solutions, and innovations can flourish to everyone's greater benefit. Yet this space is constantly encroached upon by those who would take but not give, by weeds, if you will. Yeah, Neidhart cited the Philippine film industry as a sad example, where the talents and hard work put in by collaborators were overrun by those taking shortcuts. If we allow these pirates to take over that space, only imitators will remain. Are they capable of solving the next challenges in science and technology, of writing the next Filipino novel, of making the next great film? As we weed out these imitators and free up the space in our garden, the energy of the next would-be innovators will fill up that space. So she likened, the role of copyright to a garden wherein we have to weed out the imitators and the counterfeits, because otherwise they will overtake the entire industry, like what happened like what's happening now in the struggling Philippine film industry, where counterfeiting has definitely affected and cut down jobs along the way, and has made it unproductive and unprofitable for innovators, for creative people to engage in filmmaking. So that's the special role of copyright in national development.
I think, attorney, there's a fine line sometimes from innovations, creativity when it comes to the film industry. For example, when Harry Potter became popular worldwide, here in the local industry, may mga lumabas, di ba, Harry Potter and whatnot. Now, sometimes,
Yes.
I wonder if we can blame the industry leaders in that specific industry of problems like that. I wonder if we can go after them. For example, in the teleseries that are being created on broadcast TV, they copy a lot of ideas. I mean, I remember when
Yeah.
America's Talent, diba, what's the name of that show, became popular about four years ago. All of a sudden, we have the Filipino talents, and we're continuing to imitate. Now, while imitation is the greatest form of flattery, it is still stealing, I guess.
Stealing,
No?
yes.
Diba? I guess.
Yes,
no?
you're
So,
stealing property.
You're-
It's like
yes.
stealing a car,
ganun din yun, ano?
stealing a some component system or something, stealing a cell phone. It's the same when you you fake you fake intellectual property.
That's basically faking it. So I guess we just need to be more. Maybe it's just the innovators, the composers, the writers, those people who create these ideas have to learn na hindi mo dapat nakawin yung idea ng iba. Create your own, be progressive. Very well said by the person that you quoted, how putting it into a garden, because it will not grow. It's a dead weed. If you
The weeds take over.
the weeds take over, and they will eat up the plants. Without question, counterfeit. I remember 2 shows ago or 3 shows ago, I was in this very show. I was saying that they are people who even peddle it. I call them all terrorists. You know, in the most notorious areas are Quiapo, 168, Green Hills,
Makati Cinema Square.
Makati Cinema Square, and the one in BF
Ruins.
The ruins.
Yes.
It's embarrassing, and for those who are listening and those who have slots there, and for those of you who have businesses that peddle counterfeits, don't forget, you're not just trying to make money for yourself, you're ruining the country that you're living in. So I call you the terrorist. Ganun dapat yan. We have to be hard. It's got to be black or white. There's no gray areas. And for those listening, if you know people who peddle and do this business to promote themselves and their interest to line their pockets, tell them straight to their face. Walang hiya kayo, you know? I mean, I put down those people peddling in the village in Alabang last weekend. It was a great business model. No
The
less
event,
than the club, the country club, sold tickets for a raffle, and they had first class entertainment. They had a nice stage, lights, but you need not buy a ticket to watch and enjoy it, because around the field it was open air. They had a lot of stalls that sold food, cakes, and whatnot. And those people who went out of their way who really have innovations to sell, products that they create. What I did not like, basically, is the presence of what you call the little changi stores. I don't know why we even call them changi. Let's just call it straight counterfeit. And they were selling clothes with branded counterfeit products, from bags to clothes to shoes. Yun lang, I think, na-miss na naman ng Alabang Country Club managers, no? When you allow that to generate rent from the tenant who's going to sell, let's not forget, what he's selling is illegal. There's no difference between drugs. There's no difference. Magnanakaw yan at binibenta. Ang tawag dyan, anti-fencing. And it's being legalized. And you are part of it because you are agreeing to it. So in other words,
You're also liable. There's also a liability for the lessor who
how come
allows...
hindi hinuhuli yan, ano? Dapat siya huliin mo
Dapat
yan.
niya
Makakahiya
kasuhin
naman.
eh. Oo.
Terrorists, di ba?
The liability so far has been more on civil rather than criminal. Although there have been efforts and there are bills pending in Congress. Let's hope they pass it before
Yes.
they go on a
Well,
maybe how many days.
maybe after a long night, now that they're done with Gutierrez, Next will be the RH bill, then the ARM.
The
and then
ARM,
maybe
yes,
after this, they can
elections.
tackle naman other serious issues that are just should be prioritized.
Yeah, as Miss Neidhart put it, well, these counterfeits, these pirates will not create the next Filipino novel, the next great Filipino film. They're not going to be the next ones to educate us and teach us and write books for our children. Diba? This will just overrun everything and have us, well, leave us behind in so many things, not just information, but also creativity, originality, and what have you. And remember, this is the commodity now of a lot of well-developed countries. That's why they're very, very aggressive in protecting their industries.
Which is why they're moving forward by leaps and bounds. Look at Steve Jobs, Macintosh.
Look at that.
Yeah,
I mean,
the
he has
iPod,
patents
the
and
iPad.
trademarks over his inventions, and over his company's inventions and creations.
If America did not protect that, why come out na nakawin lang? Buti na lang. Then you have the innovations and then America will prosper. So, shame on China for counterfeiting all of that. Ang China kasi meron sila iPad naman. I mean, come on.
Come on, it's still
Walang innovation
imitation.
eh.
Yeah, it's
Wala
still
eh.
imitation.
Walang
Be
creativity.
original. Stick
Yeah,
to
be
originals.
original.
Yes, be original. So that's it for Piracy Watch. I'd like to thank Mr. Harry Tambuatco for joining me this morning, and join us again next Tuesday for another edition of Piracy Watch.